Ladies and gentlemen, fear is a feeling that we all experience. It creeps into our hearts, whispers in our ears, and tries to convince us that we are not enough. It tells us that we can't do it, that we're too weak, too fragile, or too broken. But I'm here today to remind you of something powerful. Fear only controls you if you let it. You see, fear thrives in the shadows. It grows stronger the more we hide from it, the more we let it dictate our decisions. But here's the truth. You are stronger than your fears. I know what it feels like to face fear. I know what it feels like to feel helpless, to feel that everything is beyond your control. But I also know the strength that comes from rising above it, from standing tall in the face of adversity. Life doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes it brings us to our knees. Sometimes it throws challenges our way that we never thought we'd be able to face. But in those moments, we have a choice. We have a choice to either let fear define us or to let our courage lead the way. We are all warriors in our own right. Every scar, every hardship, every tear we shed, it doesn't make us weaker. It makes us stronger. It teaches us lessons we never would have learned otherwise. Fear may be loud, but courage is quieter, more persistent. Courage is the whisper in your heart that says, you are capable, you are worthy, you are enough. Courage is the force that pushes you to take that first step, even when the path ahead is uncertain. You see, fear isn't something we can completely eliminate. It will always be there, lurking in the background, waiting for the right moment to make you doubt yourself. But the beauty of it is that you have the power to move forward even when you're afraid. So don't wait for fear to disappear. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment when everything is clear and safe. The perfect moment is now. The only thing standing between you and your dreams is your willingness to move forward, to take that step, even if your knees are shaking. Let me remind you of something. You are not defined by your fears, but by how you rise above them. And remember, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have doubts. But don't let those fears hold you back. Because the moment you choose to embrace your strength, to trust in your own power, that's the moment fear loses its grip on you. You have the power, you have the courage, and you are unstoppable. Fear is a powerful force that has the ability to control us, shape our decisions, and limit our potential. However, one of the most significant aspects of fear is that it often grows stronger in silence, in the moments we choose to ignore it or avoid confronting it. When we try to push our fears aside, when we refuse to acknowledge them or face them directly, they begin to expand, to take on a life of their own. They find their way into our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, feeding off our avoidance. It's easy to think that ignoring fear or pretending it isn't there will make it go away. We may convince ourselves that if we just continue with our routines or distract ourselves with work, hobbies, or other activities, the fear will subside. But in reality, the longer we keep our fears hidden in the dark corners of our minds, the more power we give them. The silence becomes a breeding ground for our anxieties, doubts, and insecurities, allowing them to grow into something larger and more overwhelming. In this silence, fear can become a monster we can no longer control. There's a profound irony in how fear operates. The more we hide from it, the stronger it gets. It's as if fear is fueled by our own hesitation to confront it. And it's not just an abstract or theoretical idea. This is something that plays out in our daily lives in small and large ways. Whether it's the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, or the fear of not being enough, these fears remain pervasive when we refuse to. And what's worse is that in the silence of avoidance, they begin to shape the way we live, the choices we make, and the dreams we dare to pursue. Fear often convinces us that we're not capable of handling whatever it is that scares us. It tells us that we're not strong enough, smart enough, or equipped enough to take on the challenges in front of us. And as we let these thoughts fester in the silence, they become truths we begin to believe. The longer we allow fear to exist without confrontation, the more it permeates our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. We begin to make decisions based on the fear itself, rather than on our own ability to rise above it. We limit our potential, not because we lack the strength, but because we have allowed fear to control our choices. It's important to recognize that fear isn't always something we can easily shake off or dismiss. It's a natural response to uncertainty and risk, and it's something we all experience at different points in our lives. But fear doesn't have to define us. The key to overcoming it is not in hiding from it or pretending it isn't there. It's in confronting it head on. When we confront our fears, we take away their power, we put them in the light where we can see them clearly and understand them for what they truly are. Fear, at its core, is often based on our own misconceptions or exaggerated thoughts about a situation. By bringing those fears into the open, we can begin to see them for what they are: temporary, often irrational, and not as threatening as we once thought. Confronting fear head-on requires courage, but it also requires a shift in mindset. Instead of allowing fear to dictate our actions, we need to take control of the narrative. We need to remind ourselves that we are the ones in charge, not the fear. This doesn't mean that fear will disappear overnight. It doesn't mean that we won't experience it again in the future. But by confronting fear directly, we start to break its hold on us. We begin to reclaim our power, to make decisions based on our strengths and capabilities rather than on the limitations that fear imposes. One of the ways we can confront fear is by breaking it down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Often, fear feels overwhelming because we view it as a monolithic obstacle, a single force that is insurmountable. But when we take the time to dissect our fears, we can often identify specific elements that are easier to deal with. For example, the fear of public speaking might feel paralyzing if we think about the entire experience in its totality. But when we break it down into smaller steps, preparing for the speech, practicing in front of a mirror, starting with smaller audiences, we can reduce the fear and make it more manageable. Fear also often stems from the unknown, from situations where we don't have control or where the outcome is uncertain. We fear what might happen, what could go wrong, and what we might lose. But one of the most powerful ways to confront fear is by accepting that uncertainty is a part of life. It's impossible to predict every outcome, to control every variable, or to eliminate every risk. But by embracing the uncertainty and moving forward anyway, we reclaim our agency. We decide that the potential rewards are worth the risk, and that we are capable of handling whatever challenges come our way. When we choose to confront fear head-on, we send a powerful message to ourselves that we are capable, that we are worthy, and that we are strong enough to handle whatever comes our way. This doesn't mean that fear will disappear or that we'll never feel doubt again, but it does mean that fear no longer has the power to control our lives. We take the reins, we step into our own strength, and we choose to move forward despite the fear. Fear is a part of life, but it doesn't have to be a defining force. By confronting it head-on, we break the silence that allows it to grow. We take away its power and reclaim our own. Fear can no longer control us when we face it directly. It becomes something we can manage, something we can overcome, and something that no longer has the ability to hold us back. And in doing so, we unlock our true potential, realizing that we are capable of far more than we ever imagined. You are not defined by your fears, but by how you rise above them. Fear is an inevitable part of life. It can come in many forms: Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of rejection, or even fear of success. It sneaks into our thoughts, paralyzes our decisions, and holds us back from pursuing what we truly want. However, fear is not what defines us. Our ability to confront that fear and rise above it shapes who we are. In fact, how we deal with fear, how we handle the obstacles and doubts it throws at us, reveals much more about our true character than the fear itself ever could. For too long, we have allowed fear to define us. We see the hesitation, the uncertainty, the moments when we falter, and we believe those moments determine who we are. When we encounter something that scares us, we often shrink back. We see the fear and assume it's too big for us to overcome, too overwhelming for us to face. We let fear shape our actions, dictating what we do, when we do it, and how we do it. We begin to think that fear is an unchangeable part of our identity, something that we must accept as part of who we are. But what if fear is simply a temporary feeling? What if it's not a part of us at all, but rather an emotion that we can face and move through? Fear doesn't define us. It merely tests us. It challenges us to show what we are made of, to dig deeper, and to summon the courage to rise above it. Every time we face fear, we have an opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The truth is that fear is a universal experience. Everyone feels fear in different ways at different times. We all face moments of vulnerability, moments when the road ahead seems uncertain or difficult. But it's in those moments of fear that we find our true strength. It is when we feel afraid, yet choose to keep moving forward, that we reveal who we are. It's important to recognize that fear is not a sign of weakness. Feeling afraid doesn't mean you're incapable or broken. It's a natural response to the unknown, a protective mechanism that keeps us alert and cautious. But fear only becomes a barrier when we let it stop us from acting, when we let it control our lives and our decisions. When we allow fear to dictate our choices, we are no longer living freely. We are living in a world shaped by the limitations fear has imposed on us. We are not living up to our full potential because we are afraid to step beyond our comfort zone. On the other hand, when we choose to rise above our fears, we step into our power. We begin to realize that fear is not a reflection of our abilities or our worth. Fear is just a feeling that will come and go. It does not have the authority to define who we are unless we let it. The moments when we feel most afraid are often the moments when we grow the most, when we learn to face challenges head on and prove to ourselves that we are capable of more than we believed. It's essential to remember that how we rise above our fears is what truly matters. It's not about avoiding fear or trying to make it go away. It's about choosing to act despite it. Each time we face fear and take action, we build our confidence. We show ourselves that fear does not have the power to control us. Instead of running away from it, we stand in its presence and move forward anyway. It's in this act of courage, of choosing to rise above fear, that we find our true strength. This process of rising above fear is not a one-time event. It's a continuous journey. Every challenge, every setback, every time we feel afraid and decide to move forward anyway, we build upon our resilience. It's like a muscle that grows stronger the more we use it. The more we rise above our fears, the more capable we become of handling whatever comes next. Fear may never fully disappear, but it loses its power over us the more we face it. We begin to see it for what it really is, a temporary emotion that can't hold us back forever. What defines us is not how many times we are knocked down by fear, but how many times we get back up. It's in our resilience, our ability to keep going when things get tough, that our true character is revealed. We are not defined by the fears we face, but by how we choose to handle them. When we choose to rise above fear, we show ourselves and the world that we are capable of more than we ever imagined. This process of rising above fear is a journey of self-discovery. It teaches us to trust ourselves, to have faith in our abilities, and to believe that we are enough even when we feel vulnerable. Every time we rise, we become more attuned to our inner strength, to the quiet power that resides within us. Fear no longer has the hold over us that it once did, and we begin to realize that we are in control of our lives, not fear. It is not fear that defines us, but how we choose to confront it, face it, and rise above it. Fear may try to hold us back, but it will never define who we are unless we let it. What defines us is our strength, our courage, and our willingness to move forward, even when the path is uncertain. Every time we rise above our fears, we show ourselves that we are capable of far more than we ever thought possible. And it is this inner strength, this resilience, that truly defines who we are. The perfect moment to act is now, not when fear disappears. There is a common misconception that we must wait until we feel completely ready, until the conditions are perfect, until the fear has dissipated before we can take action. It's easy to believe that we'll know exactly when the right moment has arrived, that the perfect timing will present itself, and that we'll suddenly feel an overwhelming sense of confidence and certainty. But the truth is, waiting for fear to disappear is a trap that can keep us stagnant, stuck in a cycle of inaction. The perfect moment to act is never in the future, it's always in the present. It's in this very moment, even as fear lingers, that we must choose to take the next step. Fear is an ever-present companion in our lives. It doesn't wait for the perfect conditions to appear. It shows up uninvited, often when we're on the verge of something important, something that requires growth, change, or courage. Fear will always be there in some form, whispering doubts and uncertainties. It is part of the process of stepping into the unknown, of venturing outside of our comfort zones. If we wait for fear to disappear, we will be waiting forever, because fear doesn't simply vanish. It evolves, it morphs, and it continues to challenge us in new ways. The reality is that we can't wait for the fear to go away before we start moving. If we continue to put off our dreams or delay our decisions until we feel completely fearless, we will never take the first step. We will be trapped in a cycle of waiting for the perfect moment that never truly comes. Fear will always have some hold over us, but it is in choosing to act despite it that we begin to grow, learn, and build the confidence needed to keep going. There is power in taking action right now, in moving forward even when we feel uncertain. The act of moving forward creates momentum. It propels us past the fear, showing us that the unknown isn't as frightening as it seems. When we take action, we break the grip that fear has over us, and we realize that the more we move, the less fear has the ability to control us. Every step forward, no matter how small, diminishes the power of fear. We begin to see that we are capable of handling whatever challenges come our way, and the fear that once seemed paralyzing starts to lose its intensity. The problem with waiting for fear to disappear is that it creates a false sense of security. We tell ourselves that when we feel more confident, when we have more experience, or when the circumstances are more favorable, we will take action. But the truth is, the conditions will never be perfect. Life is always changing, and there will always be uncertainty. If we wait for everything to align perfectly, we may never take the leap. Instead, we must learn to act despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, and despite the imperfections of the situation. Action, no matter how imperfect, brings clarity. It shows us that we are more capable than we think, and that we can handle the challenges that come our way. The more we act, the more we learn, and the more confident we become in our ability to face whatever obstacles arise. In fact, many of the skills and lessons we need to succeed can only be learned through action. Waiting for the perfect moment robs us of the opportunity to gain that experience and wisdom. We only grow by doing, by facing the discomfort and uncertainty head on. In addition, waiting for fear to disappear often leads to a cycle of self-doubt. When we avoid acting because we feel fear, we reinforce the idea that we are not capable of handling challenges. We begin to believe that fear is an insurmountable barrier, one that must be eradicated before we can move forward. But in reality, fear doesn't need to be erased. It needs to be acknowledged and faced. We don't have to wait for it to disappear before we start living our lives. We can still take action even when fear is present. In fact, it is in those moments of fear that we prove to ourselves that we are capable of doing hard things. The key to overcoming fear is not in waiting for it to go away, but in embracing it as part of the journey. Fear is a natural response to uncertainty and risk, but it doesn't have to be an obstacle. When we accept that fear will always be a part of growth, we can start to see it for what it truly is. A sign that we are on the verge of something important. Fear signals that we are stepping outside of our comfort zone, that we are pushing ourselves to grow and evolve. It's not a reason to stop, it's a reason to keep going. The perfect moment to act is now, because waiting only prolongs the fear. The longer we wait to take action, the more time we give fear to grow louder, to become more convincing in its arguments that we shouldn't act. But if we start now, despite the fear, we take the power away from it, we take control of our journey and our decisions, and we begin to see that we are more resilient, more capable, and more resourceful than we thought. Taking action now doesn't mean that we won't feel fear or doubt. It doesn't mean that everything will be easy or that the outcome will always be what we expect. But it does mean that we are choosing to live in the present, to face what scares us head on, and to trust ourselves enough to know that we can handle whatever comes our way. We can't wait for the perfect moment to act, because the perfect moment is always right now. Strength is built through challenges, not despite them. There's a tendency, especially in moments of struggle, to look at challenges as obstacles that stand in the way of our progress. We wish for an easier path, a smoother journey, free of the difficulties that seem to constantly arise. But in reality, challenges are not things to be avoided. They are the very things that shape us, that help us grow, and that build the strengths we need to keep moving forward. The idea that we grow despite our challenges is a misconception. We grow because of them. The strength we possess, both mentally and emotionally, is not something that magically appears when life is easy or when things are going according to plan. It's forged in the fires of adversity. It's built in the moments when we feel as though we can't go on, when everything seems too much, when the weight of the world feels like it's pressing down on our shoulders. It's in those moments that we are being tested, not by the world around us, but by our own limits. We are asked, how much can you endure? How much can you grow? There's no such thing as a perfect, challenge-free life. We all face difficulties in different forms. Personal struggles, professional setbacks, emotional pain, health issues, or the loss of loved ones. And in each of these challenges, we have a choice. We can either let them break us, or we can let them build us. The strength we need to navigate life's ups and downs is not something we are born with. It's something we develop over time through our experiences, our failures, and our willingness to face hardship head on. One of the most powerful aspects of challenges is that they push us beyond our comfort zones. When things are easy, when we're surrounded by predictability and security, there is little room for growth. But challenges, whether big or small, force us to adapt. They stretch us. They make us see things from different perspectives. They require us to learn new skills, develop new strengths, and tap into reserves of resilience we never knew we had. It's easy to think that strength is something innate, something that some people have and others do not. But strength is not a static quality. It is dynamic and ever-evolving. It is something that grows as we face challenges, overcome fears, and confront adversity. Each challenge we encounter becomes a stepping stone, each failure a lesson, and each setback a chance to rise again, stronger and more capable than before. It's through the process of overcoming difficulties that we discover our true potential. This is why challenges are not things to fear, but things to embrace. It's through them that we become who we are meant to be. Strength is not about never falling. It's about learning how to rise each time we fall. It's about finding the courage to stand up even when we feel like staying down. And it's about realizing that in those moments of struggle, we are developing the mental toughness, the grit, and the resilience we need to handle whatever life throws at us next. There is also an important shift in perspective that needs to happen when we look at challenges. Instead of seeing them as barriers to our happiness or success, we need to start seeing them as opportunities. Every challenge presents us with a chance to grow, to test our limits, and to refine who we are. Without challenges, we would stagnate. Without obstacles, there would be no progress. It's in the act of pushing through difficulties that we learn not only about the world around us, but also about ourselves. We learn what we are capable of, how we handle pressure, how we deal with fear, and how we bounce back after failure. Strength is not just about physical endurance or mental toughness. It's about emotional resilience. It's about learning how to deal with pain, how to process difficult emotions, and how to keep going when everything within you is screaming to give up. It's about learning how to face rejection, how to handle criticism, and how to stay true to yourself even when things seem impossible. It's easy to show strength when everything is going well, but true strength is revealed in the moments when we are knocked down, when we are faced with hardship, when life pushes us to our limits. It is in those moments that we discover what we are truly made of. Every challenge teaches us something valuable. It might teach us patience, humility, or perseverance. It might show us the importance of asking for help or the power of resilience. It might teach us how to manage stress, how to focus under pressure, or how to keep a positive mindset despite negativity. Whatever the lesson, the process of facing a challenge and growing through it is what builds our character and our strength. When we look back on the challenges we faced in our lives, we don't just see obstacles in our way, we see milestones of our growth. We realize that the hardest moments we've been through are the ones that have shaped us into the people we are today. Without those challenges, we wouldn't have the wisdom, the courage, or the resilience that we now possess. It is through the challenges that we find our purpose, our strength, and our capacity to overcome whatever comes next. Strength is not about avoiding challenges, but about facing them with the knowledge that through each one, we are becoming better versions of ourselves. Strength is not something that can be built in comfort. It's built through perseverance, through struggle, and through our ability to rise again, no matter how many times we are knocked down. We do not grow despite our challenges, we grow because of them. Courage is quieter but more persistent than fear. We often think of courage as something loud, something heroic and dramatic. It's the act of stepping into the unknown with a sense of confidence, of standing up when everyone else is sitting down. But in reality, courage doesn't always look like the grand gestures we see in movies or hear about in stories. Courage is often quieter, less noticeable, but more persistent than we realize. It's the quiet strength that pushes you to take one more step when you feel like giving up. It's the inner resolve that keeps you going, even when the external world seems uncertain and overwhelming. Fear, on the other hand, is loud. It demands attention. It shakes us with its intensity and fills our thoughts with doubts and worries. Fear can take over. It can be all-consuming, and it can stop us in our tracks if we let it. Fear will make sure you know it's there, whispering in your ear or yelling at you to turn back. Fear brings with it an urgency, an energy that tries to overpower everything else. It's easy to think that fear is the bigger force, the one we need to be afraid of. It seems so real, so immediate, and so powerful in the moment. But here's the thing about courage. It doesn't need to compete with fear. It doesn't need to scream louder than fear. What makes courage so powerful is that it doesn't demand the same attention. Instead, it moves quietly, consistently, and steadily. Courage is the whisper in your heart that says, I can do this. It's the quiet confidence that gets you out of bed when the world feels too heavy to face. It's the small decisions to show up when you don't feel like it, to keep moving forward when the path is uncertain. Courage doesn't need a stage or an audience. It's there in the quiet moments, in the ones when no one is watching, but you continue anyway. Fear tends to magnify itself, making things seem much more daunting than they are. It convinces us that the worst-case scenario is the only possibility and that the unknown is far too dangerous to navigate. But courage, despite the presence of fear, still allows us to move forward. Courage acknowledges fear, but does not let it dictate our actions. It's not about eliminating fear, because that is impossible. Fear will always be there, just like doubt, worry, and uncertainty. Courage is about moving forward in spite of those things. Often, the bravest acts are not the ones that come with applause or recognition. They are the ones where we push through our own hesitation, where we stand up even when we feel like we're falling apart. Courage isn't about never feeling afraid. It's about continuing to act even when we do. It's easy to show courage when you feel confident, when things are going according to plan, or when the stakes aren't high. But true courage is shown in moments of fear, when everything inside you wants to retreat, but you choose to keep going. There's something enduring about quiet courage. It doesn't give up easily. It doesn't fade away just because things get tough. It's like a flicker of light that refuses to be extinguished by the dark. While fear might be loud and overwhelming in the beginning, courage has the persistence to continue despite the storm. It's the inner strength that tells you to take one more breath, to give one more try. Even when everything inside you is shouting, this is too much, you can't do it. Courage is the quiet voice that pushes you forward. Even when fear is shouting, stop. The beauty of courage is that it doesn't need to be dramatic to be effective. Sometimes it's just the choice to get up after a fall, to try again after a failure, or to face the difficult conversation we've been avoiding. It's the quiet determination that refuses to be drowned out by fear's volume. It doesn't need recognition, it doesn't need validation, but it is what drives us to be better, to keep improving, and to face life head-on, no matter the circumstances. Fear will always try to take the lead, to dominate our thoughts and feelings. It will magnify the challenges, blow things out of proportion, and convince us that we can't make it through. But courage is a slow, persistent force that stays with us, even when the fear gets louder. It's like a steady drumbeat that moves us forward, one small step at a time. Courage doesn't need to shout to be heard. It just needs to keep moving, keep pushing, keep acting. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about acknowledging fear for what it is, temporary and often exaggerated, and still choosing to move forward. Courage is quieter than fear, but it has the persistence to outlast it. While fear may come in waves, building in intensity, courage endures. It doesn't give up when things get hard, and it doesn't retreat when challenges arise. It remains steady and calm, guiding us through life's difficulties, even when the road seems long and uncertain. This quiet persistence of courage is what allows us to achieve things that seem impossible. It's what gets us through the days when we feel like giving up. It's the quiet but relentless force that drives us to rise after every fall, to face the things that scare us, and to move forward, no matter how daunting the journey may seem. And in the end, it's this quiet courage that makes all the difference.
Sotto la luna cammino piano, con le scarpe vecchie di papà, strada parra, lo cori canta, e ti penso mentre va. Sotto la luna cammino piano, con le scarpe vecchie di papà, strada parra, lo cori canta, e ti penso mentre va. A nonna spanna i panni fuori, culo soli che struscia l'aria, o pane caldo sopra la pietra e l'odore di casa mia. Vento di casa, portami a tia, tra le mura du paese mia. Se tu mi chiami, torno con tutto, chianta un limone, ti dugno lo frutto. Una fontana cantanta chiazza i picciri di corrono fora, e una canzone antica ballamo con l'organetto che suona ancora. Una fontana cantanta chiazza i picciri di corrono fora, e una canzone antica ballamo con l'organetto che suona ancora. E se lontano vai non scordare, che ogni pezza cagati si può ricostruire. Lo cuore mio sempre ti sapi, torna a casa che lo cielo t'abbraccia. Vento di casa, portami a tia, tra le mura du paese mia. Se tu mi chiami, torno con tutto, chianta un limone, ti dugno lo frutto. Chiami